Good afternoon and welcome to the Environment and Transportation's Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Spaces Subcommittee. We will hear one, two, three, four, five bills today, but I think we need to start with Patrick because I think you have land use. Is that okay?
No, I have the oyster authorizations.
I know, but you have land use committee to
No,
go to, so you want to
the
start first.
transportation meeting, but
Transportation, yes. Okay. So I'll let you go ahead.
okay, well, we have an amendment, Meredith, if you could show it for House Bill 893. Here we go. If we could scroll down a little bit, Meredith. And by the way, is DNR on here? Is
Yes, they are,
Emily?
and I don't have the amendment.
It's the reprints on the screen here. Okay. And there we go. Um, we have, this is the current law is that for a knowing violation under this section is revocation. This is for changes that to for a first violation, suspended for up to 5 years, and then for a person who was previously suspended before the effective date of this act, um, and subsequently reinstated 10 years. And then second or subsequent events is revocation.
You can keep going, Patrick. And we'll go through them all, then we'll take questions.
That is pretty much the amendment.
Ah, that's right, because we forgot to add it, right? And I don't have the updated, I don't know why I don't have the updated copy. Okay. Um, and it needed conforming changes towards the end, suspension or revocation.
We have that.
Got it. Okay. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick, could you just explain the 10 years part? I don't remember that part. I'm sorry. What the situation is there?
If you had been, if you are revoked now, and then you get the license back, and then you commit a knowing violation, then instead of the 5 years, it's 10 years.
But what would be the situation where I mean, currently now, isn't it just lifetime revocation? So how would they get their license back?
Well, this bill would authorize the return of the license.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry, Will, they don't get a return of the license. They go to the bottom of the list to potentially get a
Correct.
license.
but so they would get. I understand. Never mind. Thank you. I got it.
Uh, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. All I was going to say to Delegate Ruth was the bill creates a pathway that if the license becomes suspended, they would go to the end of the line, which currently has, I believe, 68 people waiting currently. I'm not sure how fast these move. I know it's not very fast. Maybe DNR could answer that question if it's one or two or three a year. I don't know. But it's by no means a fast process, I can assure you that.
Is DNR on the call?
Yes, Madam Chair, I can answer that.
Yes, please.
So it depends on the authorization type. There are certain authorizations where you would get on the wait list. I think we have a wait list for all of them right now, but it might be 1 to 3 years to get one. Other ones like the 900 pot crab license, I think we've had people on there for over 15 years.
And just so the group knows, and I'm sorry, I don't have I thought I had the reprint, but I don't have it. That this also means that individuals can I'm sorry, they can be with someone who has a license, but they don't have they can't well, they can't catch oysters on their own, but if they are with someone who, as I understand, has a license, they could be a mate. Is
Yes.
that okay? Delegate Otto.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think these amendments are good, and as you said, it would allow them to work into business, be it drive a truck or what have you. Right now, without that license and that revocation, they can't even do other jobs, not much less catch the oysters. But I'd move the amendments, if you will.
I'd like to take more questions if you don't mind. Hold that,
Okay, that's fine.
Mr. Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would it be okay if I asked Allison Colden a question? I see
Sure,
she's
absolutely.
on here. I'm just feeling confused because we've heard a lot of different options, and I'm certainly in favor of changing what was there. But Allison, can you, is this what you were?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question, Delegate. I would say based on the reprint that you all just reviewed, it's slightly different than what my understanding was in last week's
proposing,
conversation.
or is this something different? I feel like I'm losing my. Okay.
I'm sorry, can you all hear me?
We can hear you. I
couldn't,
think
now I
Delegate
can, yeah.
Ziegler was
Oh,
yeah.
it's my connection. Sorry. Let me grab an Ethernet cable.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Dr. Colden.
Okay, thank you. So a couple things here with respect to the first violation, supporting that 5 years on the first violation and a revocation for the second violation. The folks who are currently revoked and would be eligible for reinstatement, we were suggesting that that should be equivalent to folks who are revoked in the future, so that the retrospective folks are treated the same as the folks moving forward, which would mean at the end of the bill, the amendment would include people who are currently revoked, have been revoked for at least 5 years. And those who were revoked and then had any subsequent violation would not be eligible for reinstatement. And similarly, for those who are reinstated, you know, the 10 years from our perspective would be similar to the revocation. So you know, that would be a second offense, similar to the revocation for folks who are on their second offense moving forward. So that was what we were suggesting in terms of which is a little bit different from the amendments you all are reviewing today.
So I guess I don't think I understand. So you're saying the amendment we just put in for a person who's authorized to catch oysters was revoked before July 1st and subsequently reinstated 10 years. So you don't want the 10 years, you want a revocation?
Right. So similar. So if they were already revoked, they have committed one violation. So have that be the revocation they have now is the one violation. If they are reinstated and violate again, if it's somebody who it was their second violation who hasn't been revoked before, then that would be a second and a revocation. So we're saying to treat those two similarly, it would be a revocation. And then on the length of time for the reinstatement near the end of the bill, if you have been revoked and have served your 2 years, our suggestion is to make that 5 years so that it's consistent with the suspension for people who are suspended after the effective date of the bill, if that makes sense.
I actually, Allison, think that the end of the bill is going to come out
Oh, okay.
Okay.
because I think with the rewrite, it's not necessary. We've been trying to figure this out all day.
Okay.
Well, conceptually, that's what we're hoping and recommending, is that those folks before and after the effective date are treated similarly, so that there's not any concerns there with the different groups being treated differently.
Delegate Ruth.
I think Delegate, thank you, Madam Chair. I think Delegate Otto was ahead of me.
Delegate Otto. You're on mute, sir.
I guess I didn't put my hand down from before.
Okay.
I'm sorry
I
about
thought
that.
so. Okay. Go ahead, Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so I think Allison just explained what was confusing me about that, where it seemed like the 10 years was basically giving them another chance, where it's their revocation that they're currently under, they could be reinstated, but then they could have another 10-year suspension and then a revocation. So it would be like a first, a second, and a third chance, as opposed to the regular, if they're suspended, if they're after July 1st, it would be 5 years and then revocation. So it would be a first chance and then revocation. So I think Allison cleared up my confusion.
Yeah, but I think in general, I think this subcommittee decided that if you offend, we will give you 5 years. If you offend again, then you're revoked.
Yes, I agree.
Point
I
blank
agree, Madam
period.
Chair, and that's not what this amendment says.
No. Delegate Foley. Delegate Foley?
Got it, thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now I am really a little confused. So when Patrick said the end of the bill is coming out, do you mean the part on page
Section E.
Section E.
Section
That's what
E? So all of Section E comes out. Is that what you're saying, Patrick?
Right. It turns out that was an attempt at the retroactive, which is what is happening above in A.
Okay, that's what's happening above. And then from what Allison said, she wants to change 5 years to 10 years. I'm still
No.
confused. No. Madam Chair, can you explain to me again?
5 years. So under this bill, you get caught in a sanctuary, you get caught in a prohibited area, you get 5 years. Okay.
Okay.
You finish your 5 years, you get caught again, your license is taken.
You're done. Yeah.
You're done. But then we talked about the people, and Delegate Jacobs did a good job of talking about this last year and this year. People who had been their first time offense, they were revoked.
Okay.
Period.
These are the people before July
Yes, this is
2025.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
Since the ability to revoke was in place. So these are the people we're trying to find a pathway back for. And so we may need to clean up number 2. Delegate Ruth.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you just answered my question. I think that, yes, thank you.
What was that? What question did I answer?
I'm sorry, my head is going around and around with all this, but I think that when you said we have to clean up number 2, I think that's the answer. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So I get that the number 2 is supposed to clarify all of E, but I don't think I think it's catchy because the way it reads is essentially I can offend and then offend again and get 10 years versus if I offend again, you should be revoked. I mean, that is what we agreed to as a committee. So we have to think about how to, maybe it should say if you have served, I think it should say if you have been revoked, and it has been 10 years, then you can go back and you have no other offenses, then you can go back to the bottom of the list. I think that is point blank, period. Delegate Jacobs, what are your thoughts?
Well, In the original bill, it was 2 and 10. And now it's 5 and 10, correct?
It's 5 in revocation,
5 in revocation. So,
second or subsequent.
so I'm not after a third chance, that's for sure. This is for a second chance.
Right.
Yeah.
But we also wanted to give folks who have been revoked and we can decide the years. We can align it with the past suspensions of 2 and 10. And so or the 10 years, and say if you met your 10 years and you have not had another violation, that means you violated on another license that you've had, for instance. I would
I mean, like, are you saying like any violation? Like, could be a crab violation? See, that's
well, I
the
guess
problem.
the thing is, if you're revoked, you're revoked. So I mean, like if
But that you're revoked automatically if you do one of the 5
right,
different under the section. If you
right.
get to one of the 5, that's the automatic revocation. That's what this is going after. And so, the bill was talking about the one-time offenders and originally we're going to get 2 years, and now you're saying 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in the original bill, the ones that had 2 offenses, they were going to have to go 10 years before they could go get an opportunity to get a suspension or, back in line. And if they get either one of them gets caught again, then it's revocation. That's what I understand. I'm
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're saying. But again, it's the
but as
pathway.
far as if you say no offenses, I mean, you got to be pretty clear on that one. That you mean like oyster offenses or any offense? I mean, you could get caught with a personal flotation device would be technically an offense.
Right. So I'm just remembering past hearings on this. And we had a young man, I won't forget it, in 2019, he came in, he lost his license. And after further investigation, what we found out is that he lost his license because another fishery license that he had, he was in violation of. And so this was essentially a second violation. And so he was revoked because he already had something on the books. So
The only ones I've had testify were ones who had oyster violations.
okay. So again, the question is what is a clear path for those who are revoked? Delegate Ruth.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And so I think, I'm not sure why this says 10 years, but I think if going forward, a first offense is 5 years, that this should be 5 years to align. So it should say something like for a person whose authorization to catch oysters was revoked before July 1st, 2025 and has been revoked at least 5 years, they can be reinstated, and then something like that.
You're talking about explicit language to authorize reinstatement.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think it's implied by this bill, but I don't disagree that it could be clearer.
And I think it should be 5 years, not 10 years, to make it align with the.
Well, no, the 10 years here is the subsequent suspension. The
But-
5 years you're talking about would be after the offense before July 1st, 2025.
Okay, but there should be no subsequent suspension. After 5 years, it can be reinstated, but then a second offense would be revocation, just like a future one. There's no subsequent suspension that we agreed to.
Hey, Regina, Terry's trying to get in. He says our host is not letting him in.
Please let him in, Meredith.
Yep, just saw it pop up.
Got it. There he is. Okay. So let's talk about how we clarify this language so that we can adopt and move. Delegate Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think, I might not be right about this, but I think that if you leave it, number one, 5 years, or number two, for a person whose authorization to catch oysters was revoked before July 1, 2025, 5 years for, provided there's only one violation. Because if there are subsequent violations, they're
They're a
not,
violation of the current law that we're trying to set.
what?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, but if there's more than one violation, then they're revoked, right?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah, so that has to be reflected there, is what I'm trying to say. I think it has to be changed to 5 years, and I think it has to reflect that if there's another, if they've had another violation and they were revoked before July 1, 2025, if they have more than one violation, then they're revoked. The revocation stands.
Right.
But if they only have one, then it's 5 years and they can be reinstated. Does that sound right?
That sounds right, but the past, let me pull up my old bill. Okay. So it sounds like we may need the last bit of language because it clarifies who gets, so we may not need number 2, but need to clarify E.
Madam Chair, I think you've hit the nail on the head.
I think
Okay.
so too, because that's where it says the revocation was the person's first offense.
Right. If instated, so that's been revoked at least 2 years,
But that would be 5 years.
5 years, correct? First offense. And it was and I think that's where the 10 years come, the authorization has been revoked for at least 10 years. Because there's some people, for instance, I think talking in the past that had a first offense and have been revoked for almost over a decade. So those are the people that would come back in. So it sounds like we don't need 2, but need to keep E. Patrick, does that make sense?
It can. It can.
So why don't we check with Dr. Colden? Can I call on you to ask you if that makes better sense?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree in my mind that that's a little bit clearer that that the 2 sections are separate. The people who are being affected after July 1st, 5 years first offense, then revoked. People who are being reinstated from previous violations to July 1st. The revocation is their first violation. If they violate again, it's a revocation. I think that that clarifies it in my mind. I think we're on the same page there.
Okay. So looks like we don't need 2 because E clarifies. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think we're getting very close. But I think under E on page 3 of the reprint, we don't need lines 10 through 14 because there shouldn't be, because that seems like it adds a second, right? So
Well, that is because there are people right now who had a first-time offense who have been revoked, and it's been 10, 15, X amount of years, unless I'm incorrect.
right, but that would still be more than 5 years, right? That would still fall under the first part, right? So if their authorization has been revoked 10 years, it still would be more than 5 years. So then they would be reinstated, whether it's 5 years or 10 years, they would be reinstated. That would be their first offense. And if they do it again, then it's a revocation.
I'm not sure 100% agree, but I
Because
want to think it through. Well, let's think it through. Because it says has been revoked for at least 2 years, which should be changed to 5 years. Okay.
Delegate
It's an
Ruth is right.
or.
Getting
Was that
rid of 2 would be still captured under 1 in E.
1E? Okay, the subsequent applies. So no 2 at all, no 2 through, or excuse me, 10 through 14.
Yes.
Okay. So it ends at removing or in this, under this section. So it ends at line 9.
Right.
Stated if for at
Actually,
least.
you probably don't need lines 8 and 9 either.
So I guess the question then is if I have been revoked for 10 years, but I may have 2. No, you can't have 2 revocations, but you may have some other.
Other violations don't play into this section.
Okay. So then if you're revoked, you're revoked. So it's a first time offense for everybody who's been revoked.
Correct.
But I think, could you be revoked? Could you be revoked but adjudicated as not knowing?
Yeah, if you're adjudicated as not knowing, you wouldn't be revoked.
Okay. So but there are other revocations outside of knowing.
Correct. But they're not relevant to this section.
Okay. Delegate Jacobs.
What I was gonna say was, perhaps you could just put minimum of 5 years, or at least 5 years. Forget about the ones who have 10 years, because you're only doing it for one offense, right? So what's the difference whether they got to have at least 5 years in order to qualify for a suspension? So it doesn't matter if it's been 12 years. If it goes back to 2011, it's irrelevant.
At least 5 years, yeah.
It's a minimum 5 years. And that clarifies the whole 10-year issue,
Okay.
in my opinion. I don't know, maybe. What do you think, Patrick?
Well, yeah, I mean, once you say minimum 5 years, everything past that is concluded.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Why bring in the confusion of the other years? If they're not really part of it anyway, what difference does it make?
I think we were maybe overextending and trying to capture those people who have been revoked for a very long time, but at least 5 covers it.
Right.
So,
At least
right.
5 would cover it, is what I'm saying.
All right, so I just want to,
I think it makes it more confusing to put the 10 in there, because
that's fair. So just so for clarification, we're removing I2 totally. And on page 3, we're removing 8 through 14.
That's yes. And then changing in line 7, 2 to 5.
Yep, got that too. Okay,
Now, if you want, we're doing it again tomorrow and we're not voting till Wednesday, so I could give you a clean look at this tomorrow if you'd like.
that would be awesome. Thank you so much. Can, yes, we can do that. I appreciate that. Thank you guys so much for working on this
I
bill.
have to go downstairs.
Yes, I know you do. Thank you so much. So we'll have
Right.
that cleaned up and voted out tomorrow.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Patrick. Okay, well, let's go to 114. This is the departmental's pesticide and pest control revisions. And so the bill essentially just um, uh, um, puts, well, I guess since 2003, the EPA had some rules and regulations that the Department of Ag is finally putting into place along with their plan. So it conforms to their requirements, their regulations, and their plans around pesticides. So there were no amendments. So if Krista, you want to just go through and give a little bit more detail, more than I did.
Sure. The substantive changes are being, oh, it looked like I just froze. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So right, like you said, it's amending provisions relating to pesticide applicators, and the substantive changes address the application of restricted use pesticides. And like you said, they're in response to bring it into line with EPA requirements. So basically, what it's requiring that commercial application of a restricted use pesticide be done by a certified pest control applicator or certified public agency applicator, and that would eliminate the ability of a non-certified individual to apply a restricted use pesticide under the supervision of a certified applicator. And then it does establish additional requirements that apply to private applications. It would require that in order for a non-certified individual to do a private application of a restricted use pesticide under the supervision of a certified private applicator, they would have to meet certain federal requirements. And the bill was held last week. Baltimore City had submitted testimony where they had some concern about transfer of liability. That's current law, and this bill isn't changing current law with respect to transfer of liability. And we heard back from the department, and the Baltimore City's concern was about obtaining waivers, access waivers when they're conducting certain rodent control, and this bill does not eliminate that ability for the city to get those waivers.
Yeah, so the city should be fine. And as I understand it, this bill was favorable. There was no unfavorable. And as I understand through the grain producers, this is also needed as it relates to being able to potentially treat certain plants at nurseries to then have them shipped appropriately out of state. So there any questions about this bill? I'm sorry, Delegate Foley.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I don't have a question, but I just wondered if it's appropriate to move the bill.
Yes, if there are no questions, I'm happy to take that. Is there a second?
I'll
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? I know Charles Otto said he was good with this. It's really, so appreciate it. Thank you so much. The bill moves favorable to the committee. HB 513.
Do you want me to bring up the new reprint?
Yes, please. Kristen, can you pull, Kristen, Meredith, can you pull that
Yep,
up?
doing it right now.
Thank you,
Okay,
ma'am.
great, thanks. So, it's largely the same as last week. It's moving the restrictions on keeping roosters from the ag article to under law enforcement and animal control enforcement and the criminal law code. And it takes out the number that was specified in the bill on the amount of roosters that would kind of trigger this violation. So essentially, we're left with a person that's keeping roosters individually would be prohibited from keeping them movement constrained through the use of an enclosure or tether. And that is right there, starting in line 9 through 12 is the prohibition. And we also took out language in other places of the bill that also specified the number of roosters as a cleanup.
Okay, I can,
And if you want to see the amendment changes to the bill
uh-oh. Did I freeze or did you freeze?
prohibition, Meredith, the penalty language. Am I frozen?
You're coming in and out a bit.
Up, I just got my internet connection is unstable.
Oh.
I am unstable. So all I was suggesting was to scroll down, through the end of the bill where you could also see the updates to the penalty provisions and just go up back a little bit. Right there.
And it gives who can have enforcement powers as well.
Correct.
Okay, I see some hands raised. Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just want to say I think this is a good amendment focusing on the movement constraint issue and taking out any numeric requirements. So I think this is a good approach.
Thank you. Delegate Baker. Take your time.
My unmute button got covered up there somehow. Hey, I
Okay.
want to thank you all for working on this bill, getting it to where I think it's a really good bill. My only question would be movement constraint. That would be a cage. Is there any measurements
Cage,
on
a
the size
rope,
of
a
that?
chain.
Okay, but there's say on the enclosure of the cage, are there any cubic feet areas, or is it just
Not
a
in the
small
bill.
cage? Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, the definition that was added is enclosure means a structure used for confinement, including a wire cage or an item traditionally used for another purpose, such as a water tank or a plastic barrel that is used to provide long-term housing for one adult rooster and prevents interaction with other roosters.
Okay, and so this won't affect my chicken coop
Nope. Nope. Not at all.
once I get it built. Okay,
Any other
Thank you.
questions, Delegate? Because, it was because of you that we really worked on this enclosure definition. So we thank you for
and
that.
I know that, and I really want to appreciate everyone's help in doing that.
Absolutely.
Thank
Delegate
you.
Foley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my recollection from last week was that we kind of either formally or informally signed off on the amendments, and you said that we needed to kind of hold off on the bill because you wanted to check with judiciary.
Judiciary approved the bill, which is why it's back on the list. Yes.
Okay, so we're in a posture now where we could pass the bill out of the
Yes, we
compressor.
could, after I talked to Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Jacobs.
Okay, thank you.
You're
All right,
on.
here I'm, I gotta go from here to lower my hand and unmute, They ought to be side by side. So, I've been 2 years beating this bill right to death. And I think it's for the most part, in a good spot. I agree with Delegate Stein and Delegate Baker, most people on here. The only problem I have, and I don't think that we can fix it, is in the amendment, it says a person who keeps roosters that are maintained individually. And I think that's part of what we need to do, but also coming from a family that raised laying hens and chickens, the stewing hens got put in a pen individually until it was time to chop their heads off for dinner. And so I don't want that to fall into a category, even though it's kind of going down the road a ways, but still, that's in reality, what happens is these chickens get separated and put in a pen until Saturday afternoon when it's
Right,
clean
but that's
time.
not long-term. The bill
That's
says
not-
long-term.
Would those
for
be
work.
roosters or hens?
It could be either one.
Okay.
If it's gonna be stewed, you know, it's in the waiting list.
Well, this bill, as I read it, would not affect that. Would not
I don't know if
affect
I'm free
those folks.
frozen.
That's why I was saying that I don't think that you can fix this bill. It's just an issue that in reality, I know about, having been raised on my mother's side of the family. They had, we did that with hens and roosters, on the farm. And when they were lined up for the stew pot, they got put in a pen for a few days until it was time to.
Individually or together,
It could be individual, it could be two.
right? I don't
Whoever,
see,
whoever
I-
was for dinner.
right. I take your concern seriously, but this bill doesn't match.
No, I'm saying, I don't think that what I'm saying now is going to fix anything in the bill. It's just the only thing that I'm concerned about, because I know in reality
Right.
that it does happen. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to get misconstrued.
I hear you, but it also says on page 2, line 25 and 26, authorization from the county in which the roosters are located that specifies. And so you would have to say the reason why you had them there. They're about to get stewed. That's it. Walk away. So I think
Well, that's
I
the
think this
4-H
bill covers your
member
concerns.
exemption. Am I frozen?
Yeah. it's a
Sorry, I'm having problems obviously on my end. Things are freezing up for me. I know you just read off the 4-H member exemption, and I
Right.
think you'd also mentioned earlier that this is applying to enclosures for long-term housing, and I don't,
Okay.
if it's for dinner, it's probably not for long-term housing.
Delegate Ruth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also wanted to point out where it says on page 3, under the section does not apply to, we've added a person if on request of an animal control officer, an officer of a county humane society, or a police officer, the person provides in writing proof that the person possessed more adult hens than roosters within the immediately preceding 6-month period. So wouldn't that clarify, if somebody was keeping them for stewing, wouldn't they be likely to have more hens?
I would agree with that.
Roosters?
I would agree. Delegate Baker.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify or make a statement, Delegate Jacobs. In Western Maryland, we fry our chicken. We don't stew our chicken. But anyhow, I just want to thank everyone for working this bill out, and I would be honored if I could make the motion to move this bill forward.
Sure. Can we move the amendments first, sir? Can you move the
Oh,
amendment?
yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
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 Any opposition?
No.
No. Otto is just a no. All right. The bill as amended.
Move the bill.
Is there a
As
second?
amended.
Second.
I'll make a motion to
Delegate
move
Baker,
forward.
second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Can I let Delegate Baker make the motion? He wanted to do it.
He did. He made it second. He sure did. He closed it out.
Okay.
All right. All in favor of moving favorably with this amended bill to the committee, signify by say aye.
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 Any opposition? Oh, no, Otto, you're good? Okay, we can have the
You
stew
got
and
to
fried
vote
chicken
against the
debate later.
bill, not the amendments. I think
Okay.
you did a good job with them.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's
Thank you. That's
yeah.
great. All right. The bill moves favorably. And let's go to the next one. It's the Washington County delegation, public safety buildings used for agritourism. It's a straightforward bill. And I don't believe there are any amendments, or if there is.
There is one amendment. So the bill is exempting an ag building in Washington County used for agritourism from obtaining a change of occupancy permit if the building's use of agritourism does not require it to be occupied for more than 200 people, and it meets certain standards for egress. And then the amendment that we received from Washington County is, I mean, I kind of look at it as more of a technical amendment, but it would ensure that Washington County is listed, added to the list of counties that are exempt ag buildings used for agritourism from the Maryland Building Performance Standards.
Got it. Any
Madam Chair,
questions,
sorry.
Delegate Foley?
Thank you. I'd like to move the amendments, please.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Otto. All in favor of the amendments, say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Bill as amended?
So move.
There's second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposing? Any abstentions? Any more fried chicken? Favorably to the full committee. Okay, we're gonna go to 1181. This is the Washington County show. Task force bill, and I should tell the delegate, the sponsor, that we have gotten permission, because task force are very hard for both, I believe, the House and the Senate, because you gotta stew and find folks. So this was certainly approved to move forward. It just is a task force to establish a state park dedicated to veterans care. Very thoughtful. Open to see what this task force comes up with. Are there any questions or discussions about this particular bill? No. Is there a desire to move the bill?
Move it.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of the bill, signify say aye.
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 Any opposition? Bill moves favorably to the full committee. Good job, guys. We moved everything. Tomorrow, hopefully we will put a stamp on 893. And thank you all for working so diligently through it. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Second. Thank you guys so
They
much.
won't stay longer.
I'll work through assignments. So just watch out for your email.